we see here that Abraham, who had about fallen on his face laughing when God made him a promise, that wasn't very faithful of him. But then he also was so faithful that he was willing to sacrifice his one and only son. That's where you see the true faith come out in Abraham. And do you see where God was patient? And in one place where he didn't believe him, he gave him another opportunity where he became the man of faith. All right, so now we have Isaac's covenant with Abimelech. And it's interesting because one of the things that they do in covenants, they'll put their hand under the thigh, which is a very personal, private thing. And also you have to be literally almost face to face. It's a very personal, in my space kind of a thing. It's very serious. No joking around, nothing sexual about it. It is just, this is very serious. Well, another thing that they did was a covenant feast. And so King Abimelech, he says, I can clearly see, we're in chapter 26, verse 28. He says, I can plainly see that the Lord is with you. So we want to enter into a sworn treaty with you. Let's make a covenant. So I swear that you will not harm us, just as we have not troubled you. And so they agree. They have their covenant, and they have their covenant feast. And on that very day, Isaac's servants came and told him a new well had been dug, and they found water. So Isaac named that well Shabbat, which means oath. And to this very day, it says, thousands of years ago, of course, but that town that grew up there is called Beersheba, which means well of oath. Age 40, Esau married 2 Hittite wives. Keep in mind words like Hittite, because you were going to see things happen later with the Hittites. Judith, and then the son of Elon, wait a minute. Esau married 2, is that what? Judith, daughter of Ruth. And Basemath, the daughter of Elon. And he said, but Esau's wives made life miserable for Isaac and Rebekah. And that's it. I mean, it's almost like a television show or a mini-series where you see these families go on, and you hear about these personal stories where this couple's making this couple miserable. I mean, it just sounds like something you'd see on television. The Lord is not hiding how mankind acts towards each other in this book. It's very interesting, and then sometimes it's not even explained. Because the next thing that happens is Jacob gets Isaac's blessings. And that is a very not nice situation where Isaac's old, he's going blind. He calls for Esau's his older son, and he says he's getting old, he may be dying, and so he wants him to prepare his favorite dish, and then he's going to pronounce the blessing that belongs to him as his firstborn son before he dies. And immediately I thought, well, wait, he already gave that up. No, he gave away his birthright to his brother. But he had not lost his blessing from his father, if that helps any. Okay, so Rebecca, remember, there's some favoritism by Mama for Jacob. And so, I'm sorry, it is hard to keep up with all these. I mean, it is the biggest soap opera in some ways. I mean, it really is. Okay. So Rebecca overheard what Isaac said to his son Esau. So when he left to go get the wild game to make the food and prepare his favorite meal, she goes to her son Jacob and says, listen, I overheard what your father said. And do exactly what I tell you. Go out and get flocks and bring me 2 fine young goats, and I'll prepare your father's greatest dish. Does that just not sound like something we do? Oh, man hasn't changed. Then take the food to your father so he can eat it and bless you before he dies. And I just think, Rebecca, what'd you have against your oldest son? He was yours too. That's just so weird. But you know what? Parents do that. They can favor one child. Okay? But look, Jacob replied to Rebecca, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and my skin's smooth, so if he touches me, he'll see I'm trying to trick him. So he's not trying to do the right thing. Because he says, he'll see I'm trying to trick him, and then he'll curse me instead of blessing me. He's more worried about being caught than he is about doing the right thing. In other words, I won't get my blessing, and he'll curse me instead of, Mom, that's not right. We're not doing that. You know? So it's, yeah. Don't think he's too good right there. But the mother replied, let the curse fall on me then. Just go and do what I tell you to do. I'm just thinking, this mother. So Jacob went out and got the young goats. And then as you go on down, you see that the father says, are you Esau or Jacob? I can't see you. And he goes, come closer. I want to smell you. I want to feel your skin. And he does all these things. He says, you know, you sound like Jacob, but you smell and feel like Esau. And because I kept thinking, well, don't you know what your son sounds like? But he can't see him. And the trickery involved, he even tried to see. He did all these things in verses 19 through 30, where he's trying to figure out if he's the right one. So Jacob bends over and kisses him. He smells like Esau, and he fell for it. And so he gives the blessing, and as soon as Esau comes back in, he realizes what has happened, and because Isaac says, who are you? And he says, I'm Esau, and he goes, I just gave your blessing. And he goes, no, Dad, you didn't. You messed up. You gave it to your other son. Isn't there a blessing left from me? And I'm thinking, just undo it. Just revoke it. They didn't do that. And in verse 33, Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably and said, then who just served me wild game? And I've already eaten, and I blessed him just before you came. And yes, that blessing must stand. So Beth, just in case you're reading, if you're thinking, yeah, but it doesn't have to stand, he goes, and yes, it must stand. I felt like that was talking to me. I was like, okay. And then I kept reading, and look at verse 34. Esau's getting all upset. He let out a loud, bitter cry. Oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too. He begged. Isaac said, your brother was here. He tricked me. He has taken your blessing. I guess because when someone does a blessing and gives their word and their promise, in this era, it's irrevocable. That's how much the word, a promise, a covenant promise means. You can't just take it back. You can't just annul it. You can't. Because once that word is spoken, unchangeable. So he's pretty upset. Esau's upset in verse 36. He says, first he took away my rights as the firstborn, but he didn't take it away. Esau gave it away. And now, do you see? So sometimes people read something and say, well, it says that. I'm like, but you got to remember the story yourself. That is what he said, but he's wrong. Remember, just like Eve was quoting what she said that the serpent said to her, but she didn't. Actually, what God said to her, to the serpent. And that isn't what God said. So if you just read that one verse and said, well, see, God said that. I said, no, she's saying that. Just like right here, he is saying that he took my rights. No. You gave them up for a bowl of soup, basically. A really good lentil soup. And I have to tell y'all, after that, I went out to Kroger. And where'd I go? Fresh Market? Or Kroger? Anyway. And no, I went to Kroger and I bought a bag of lentils and some carrots and some celery. I forgot to put in the onion. And some different kind of lettuces I broke up in little pieces and put in there. I did not use any potatoes. And I boiled some chicken till it was pull apart, and some spices, you know, just like some garlic and salts and peppers. And I made a lentil stew that was just phenomenal. And I mean, it was quite hearty. And also we had cornbread with it. So, all from reading this. The power of suggestion. Anyway, so as you keep reading down, then you go where he says, but you, in verse 40, he says, you will serve your brother. And that's just the way it's going to be. So, Jacob flees to Padam Aram, and Esau hated Jacob, hated him. And some of you may say, well, he had every right to. You never have a right to hate, okay? But he did. I will soon be mourning my father's death, then I will kill my brother Jacob. Rebecca heard Esau's plans. Here she is meddling again, but well, she may be stopping to death here. Listen, Esau's consoling himself by plotting to kill you. This is in verse 42. And so she goes, get ready and flee to my brother Laban. Remember Laban? Remember how I said, keep up with those names because they'll start making some sense. Laban was Rebecca's brother. So that would have been his uncle. And she says, stay there while your brother cools off. So Rebecca says to Isaac, I'm sick of these local Hittite women. I would rather die than see Jacob marry one of them. So Isaac called for Jacob and said, you must not marry any of these Canaanite women. Instead, go to Padan Aram, to the house of your grandfather Bethuel, and marry one of Uncle Laban's daughters. Wasn't she clever of how to get him out of there? So Isaac sent Jacob away and went to Padan Aram and to stay with Uncle Laban. And this is in chapter 28 now, and we're in verse 5. And he says, you must not marry, down in 6, you must not marry a Canaanite woman. And so Esau visited the family. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. So Esau visited Uncle Ishmael's family and married one of Ishmael's daughters. In addition to the wives he already had, his new wife's name was Mahathalah, and she was the sister of Nebaioth and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son. So after marrying 2 foreign girls, Esau had hoped to his marriage into Ishmael's family would please his parents, Isaac and Rebecca. So let's keep going. And now we're to the story of Jacob, and it's talking about how he starts